Bonjour et bienvenue. Welcome to another episode of Champagne JAYNE TV. This is the time of year when Australians drink lots of champagne. We're coming up to Melbourne Cup and the Christmas season. Last year we drank 3 million bottles, and on Melbourne Cup Day alone 95,000 bottles of sparkling were sold at Flemington races. Today we're here at Vintage Cellars. Look at the fantastic selection of champagne here in the fridges. We're going to pick out the champagne bargains of the week, so what you should be using for your trackside celebrations. Come with me. Okay, so here we are at the champagne shelves. Now, as you can see, there's a great selection of champagnes here, and the best thing about Vintage Cellars is if you buy a case of champagne or any other wines, then you actually get a 30% discount. So although the single bottle price may not be quite as competitive as, say, your Dan Murphy's or your Kemmeny's, if you're actually buying in volume to stock up for the celebrations, it's fantastic. Let's have a look. Now, looking at the shelf here, the first thing that pops out at me, Champagne Paul Roger. Fabulous champagne, a family-owned champagne house. Their cellars in Epernay are slightly deeper in the ground than some of the other cellars. What that actually means in terms of the way the champagne is made is that it's produced more slowly, it grows, the wine grows more slowly because it's slightly colder, and therefore the resulting champagne has a little bit of extra finesse. Of course, this was Winston Churchill's favourite champagne, and as an ex-pom myself, I have to say I have quite a penchant for it. And here, if you buy 12 bottles, it's under $60. That's fantastic value, guys. So Paul Roger would be my first champagne that jumps out at me. Here in the shelves, just come on in here, Cuvée Louise. This is the prestige cuvée of the House of Pommery. Now, Louise Pommery was famous in the 19th century for actually first introducing a dry style of champagne, a brut style, because up until then every champagne had been very sweet. She introduced this in the UK market in about 1870. This is obviously in remembrance of her, and if you look at the price here, my God, normally it's $300. If you buy it in a dozen, it's only $199. That's an absolutely fantastic bargain. Now, let's have a quick look at the sparkling shelves. Oh, actually, something's just caught my eye. Hang on a second. Look up here. What a fantastic selection of rosé champagnes. Rosé, of course, the first wine produced by Veuve Clicquot in 1777 was actually a rosé style of champagne, and it's gone in and out of fashion ever since. Here we've got the Veuve Clicquot, which is one of my personal favourites, $77 a bottle. In a pack of 12. Now, normally you'd expect a rosé champagne to be over $100 at least. Then you've got the Mumm, which is of course the new official sponsor of the Melbourne Cup, the Moet and the Premier Jouet. Guys, rosé champagne is wonderful as a summer style, of course, because it's a little bit richer, lots of red fruits and strawberries, so definitely a style I'd recommend for those beautiful summer beachside meals or outdoor restaurants. Now, if your budget doesn't quite stretch to champagne, there's some fabulous sparkling wines here in Australia and also from Europe. So if we look down here on the rosé shelf, here we can see Bay of Fires. This is part of the Ed Carr's group, Hardy's Wines. This isn't the Arras, but this is a beautiful example of sparkling rosé from the Bay of Fires, so it's pretty much the same region. Right next, that one's actually $23.99 in a 12-pack, so obviously you could buy pretty much 6 of those nearly for one bottle of champagne. Right next door is the Dirts, and that's actually a joint venture with a French champagne house based in Marlborough in New Zealand. Another beautiful style, although myself I prefer the Blanc de Blanc. And then next door to that you've got Surry Vieras. So this is a rosé carver, probably made from Grenache. But the one I actually really like, and this is absolutely bargain bucket prices here, the Gratier Meilleur. This is a well-known sparkling producer from the Loire Valley in the western side of France. And this Gratier Meilleur is actually a very nice, light, fresh, crisp style. And in a 12-pack it's only $14. So that's a pretty spectacular value. Now, it's time to choose the champagne bargains of the week. There are 2 champagnes on this shelf that immediately caught my eye, but that I didn't mention at first. Come with me and I'll just show you which ones. We'll start with Pierre Gimonet. Pierre Gimonet is a small family grower producer in the Côte des Blancs. It's the top end of the Côte des Blancs in a little village called Cuy. So it's a very minerally but soft, fresh and fruity style of champagne. It's pure Chardonnay from the best region in Champagne. These guys produce about 250,000 bottles a year. When you compare that with 33 million bottles for Moet, you get an idea of the difference in size. So this is a fabulous style of champagne. It's not a brand that's particularly well known in Australia, and Vintage Cellars are the exclusive importers. When you buy this in a 12-pack, well, crikey, it's just over $40 a bottle. So it's a superb value and a beautiful, quite crisp style of champagne, one of my personal favourites. The next bottle that really jumps out at me today, I have to say, is the Drapier. Now, André and Michel Drapier are in the opposite end of Champagne. They're down in the Aube region, the southernmost region. They're based in a village called Urville. They're very, very well known for their Pinot Noir champagnes, but this is actually their 100% Chardonnay style. Now, because Drapier is in the Aube, and that's much closer to Burgundy than to classic Champagne, this is a much more powerful, fruit-forward style. So, in fact, I would recommend, because this one's on sale here for $38.50 in a 12-pack. So I'd actually get a couple of Gimone and a couple of Drapier and do your own private taste off at home, because one is crisp and it is fresh and fruity, but it's a more refined, delicate style, and this one's more full-bodied. So it's actually quite a nice comparison. So my champagne bargains of the week this week, I'm being a bit greedy here, but we're coming up to Melbourne Cup, so it makes sense. I would say the Drapier and the Pierre Gimone. So they're both family-owned producers. They're not the big brands, it's a bit of an alternative, but because they're Blanc de Blanc, because they're pure Chardonnay, they're fantastic for this time of year. Now is definitely the time to stock up on champagne. And this is Champagne Jane for Champagne Jane TV. Look forward to seeing you again soon. Cheers!